Welcome to the Rat Race to 5 podcast, where we discuss money, mindset, real estate investing, and ways to achieve financial independence. Whether you are a rookie or a veteran needing new ideas for investing or creating side hustles, you're in the right place. Here to challenge you to think out of the box, your hosts, Felipe Mejia and Diego Corzo.
What's up, Diego? What a story do we have today? And like I told you a minute ago, I don't even know where I want to start because there's so many nuggets in this story. And David, our guest today, actually really allowed himself to be vulnerable and tell us the story of how he got to where he's at. Man, it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, and one of my favorite parts is it's realizing that he started with just one quadplex in year one, bought his second quadplex in year two, but fast forward a couple of years, now he has 178 doors, right? It's sort of it's just an amazing story of what people can do if they just take the time to invest wisely.
Agreed. And he talks about being a third cultured kid. He talks about the struggles that he's had to go through with his father and medical issues there, and how he came back so he went from the United States to Africa, back to the United States, and investing in real estate and now having a huge portfolio. What a great story. Let's just get right into it, man. Let's get started. Awesome. Diego, I'm super excited for today's interview, especially because we have David on the line. I'm super excited to get into him. Diego, how's Austin?
Austin is going great. Great. I went on a run this morning, had a good weekend with the family. So I'm excited to hit the weekend running. That's
awesome. David, what about you, bro? How are you, man? I'm super excited to have you on the Rat Race to 5 podcast.
Thank you, Felipe. It's great to be here. I'm doing great here in Chattanooga, Tennessee. It's a wonderful day.
Dude, I love Chattanooga. I actually grew up going to Chattanooga. The aquarium was staple for us.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're dude, I go there all the time, so I'm so tired of it. But anyways, David, tell us about who you are, man. Who are you? What do you do? What do you like to do for fun? What brought you to Chattanooga?
All right. So yeah, I'm David, the DIY_landlord. So obviously I have a lot of rental properties and I do that. But I grew up actually in Africa as a missionary kid. And now I'm back in the States and I enjoy not only real estate, of course, it's a big passion of mine, but I'm a father. I got 4 kids. I enjoy doing adventure races and playing soccer and all sorts of other activities that it's great living in Chattanooga. You can do all those sorts of things.
That's really fun. So I'm going to ask you, because I've always wondered this, when you say you're a missionary kid, so your nationality or where you were born, I mean, how do you identify that on a passport? What do you write?
So on a passport, I am American. I was born in the U.S. When I was 10, we moved to Zambia. Then I went to high school in Kenya. And then I came back to the States to go to college. Then I moved back to Africa to work for a couple of years as a hospital administrator. So I definitely feel like a citizen of the world. And there's a term for people like me. They're called third culture kids, where we don't have the American culture. We don't have the Zambian culture, the country I grew up in. We have a mixed culture, which comes with its benefits and also its downsides sometimes.
So I'm going to dig into that a little bit if I can, Diego and David, because for me, for example, I grew up here in Nashville, Tennessee in the South, right? But I'm also Mexican. So 50% of the time it was my Mexican culture and 50% of the time it was my American culture, and trying to blend the two. And that was always really hard. Talk about those struggles for you. What does that look like for you? Because it sounds like you have more than one culture also, if not 3 or 4. So what did that look like growing up? Because for me, I know that was tough. What was that like for you?
Yeah, no, I can definitely see that for people who, are from other countries living in the States and trying to keep in touch with their original culture and blending that. For me, so we get good at, us third culture kids, we get good at adapting really quickly to a new environment to deal with a person. And I think that's an advantage. I can very easily relate to or help or solve an issue for someone that I'm not anywhere connected to in their culture, right? I can understand that. I can empathize with that. But on the flip side is the struggle is we don't often feel like we really belong anywhere. And we build surface level relationships, but might not go deeper because we're not really sure what's deeper. It's kind of all confusion. And it leads us to, we're still very close. Like I'm still really close with a lot of my high school friends who had the similar experience, because we can kind of get each other. Like, so we still are like really close. I mean, I married someone that I met in high school. She's a third culture kid. And a lot of my friends from high school also married other third culture kids, because it is sometimes difficult to go deeper with people.
Interesting. So, yeah, because I feel in a similar way too, right? Because I can hear when I was 9 from Peru and leaving that culture, and I haven't been back in 20 years because of my immigration status and stuff, as a dreamer. And yeah, like I totally agree with you, and I feel that same way. I remember in high school, like my best friend, even till now, he was born in Germany, and we both sort of like identified from that perspective of us still being here in the States, growing up here, but we weren't. But there are things that are not the same as if we were 100% Americans.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
And
totally can relate.
that's cool, Diego. I didn't know you were from Peru. My wife is half Peruvian.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So half Peruvian, half Argentinian. But she grew up in Africa, so she's like really doesn't identify with the culture over there, and she moved when she was 3, so she she struggles also like the same thing I do.
That's interesting because like I feel like a lot of people like that have, you know, 2-3 different cultures because they were raised in different areas, are sometimes a little bit more open-minded to accepting others from different cultures and societies and backgrounds, because they understand that, you know, let's just say that you're from, I don't know, the United States. Like the United States is this big compared to the world. Like there's so much more out there. So I feel the same way. Like I've been able to identify with other people from other cultures and be like, oh, like I get the struggle. Like, you know, sometimes you don't feel like you completely fit in. And it was interesting. I'm going to bring it back. It's interesting what you said, David, where you said that like it's hard sometimes to dig deep in relationships because you don't know what that looks like on the other side. So, you know, I definitely can identify with that. So that's crazy. Okay. So Africa, United States, back to Africa. What does your schooling look like? High school, college? Like what happened?
Yeah. So I was actually homeschooled all the way up until high school. Like we were in Zambia, I was homeschooled. And then in high school, I went to a boarding academy in Kenya. And there was about 100 students there, but around 30 different nationalities represented, or 26 or something like that. So it was a real big melting pot. Small high school, but really mixed. And then people like colleges from the United States used to come because it was an American system. They would come over there and recruit. So then they recruited there, and then like a bunch of us would like go to a college. So when we came to college, I came with about like 6 or 7 other friends from my high school. We all went to the same college, and you know, more and more came in different years, and so we kind of had our little community from Kenya in Chattanooga, where we would all hang out. And then yeah, so I went to college here in the United States.
Would you end up studying, you said?
Business management,
Okay.
and then I ended up getting a master's, an MBA with an emphasis in healthcare management after that.
And from there, then you went back to Africa.
Then I went back to Africa because my wife's parents, they've been in the Congo, the Democratic Republic of Congo, which is the largest country in Africa, and the largest French speaking country in the world, actually. Yeah, it's
Wait, you can't just drop that bomb. Rewind. What?
yeah, largest French speaking country in the world. More people speak French there than anywhere else in the world.
Dude, I need to go to Africa. This sounds lit. Like this just sounds amazing.
So her parents, her dad's a surgeon. They worked at a mission hospital, and then they ended up starting their own hospital, like a surgery center. They had been running it for a couple of years. My wife's a nurse. I had just graduated with my MBA, healthcare management, and they asked us to come over to help me as a hospital administrator, and she was going to work as a nurse. And so we jumped in. I didn't speak any French. I like just moved over there and like some Duolingo and just started like jumping and getting into work. And it was a crazy experience. I mean, Democratic Republic of Congo, I love it. I love the people there, but man, it is a difficult place to work.
Why? Why is it difficult?
So it has because of the culture in a way. And, culture is impacted by a lot of different things. And the Democratic Republic of Congo, it's impacted because they've had a lot of conflict over the years. It's the one country, I mean, go check it up. It's the one country the UN actually bombed them. Like the UN attacked the country to keep like one part of the country from breaking off. It's a crazy history. Yeah. So like the southern part of the country wanted to be their own country, and the UN was basically like, no, you can't, and like we come and attack you to keep you all one country. Anyways, so yeah, but anyways, so there's been conflict from conflict from conflict, and it's developed a society that's kind of, if you're always expecting conflict, you're always concerned about your immediate needs. Building towards the future for a long-term goal is difficult when, well, there might be a war next, right? On top of that, they have a lot of natural resources, like all the mining and diamonds and gold and all the minerals that you need in an electric car. Like everything comes from Congo. So there's a lot of natural wealth. So people think, well, our wealth is just like mining or whatever. Like why build like another business or a long-term plan or even farming when we'll just sell the diamonds and buy the food. And it lacks infrastructure as well, obviously, with all the fighting and stuff. So it's developed a culture of corruption in a way. There's a lot of corruption there because everyone's trying to look out for, okay, I have this government post. I need to make it work for me right now because I don't know when it might be gone. And it permeates all the way down. So the police officers, they don't get paid but like $100 a month. And to make up the difference, they have to harass the citizens to get bribes from the citizens. And then they have to give some of those bribes to their boss. And that's how they survive. Even school teachers in public schools, they don't make enough money either. So they have to essentially solicit bribes from the parents to then say, okay, now I can survive. If you pay me, then your son will pass or something like that in different way. Now, obviously, there's good people there and not everyone is corrupt. But you will see police officers on every corner and they will try to stop you and try to find something wrong so that you have to give them a bribe. It's very pervasive in the culture, and young people see it growing up. And it's also difficult for entrepreneurs because you have all these government agencies coming trying to basically enforce laws and find something wrong so then they can ask for a bribe so that you don't get in trouble with their IRS or and they have like 15 different, organizations and entities that are coming to check to make sure this is done and this is done, this is done. So it makes it difficult to do work, but it really stems from that culture aspect of what's needing something immediate, which is unfortunate because they're really great people, really intelligent people, and there's lots of resources there and everything. But just how the culture and the government has developed, it makes it difficult for an honest small entrepreneur to get started.
Yeah, totally. I can totally imagine that. And so how many years were you in that environment?
Yeah, it was about 5 years.
Okay.
As a hospital administrator over there. And I liked it a lot because it was always another challenge. Nothing was ever boring. It's not like a hospital administrator here in the US where you just have your set role and that's what you do. I mean, whatever needed to be done,
you probably wore many hats, I would say. I'm sure you did a plethora of work.
Yeah, I even when the CT tech wasn't there, I was doing the CT scans. Yeah, it's so funny, and I would do them regularly, and I was doing like when he wasn't there. I mean, I've probably done like over 1,000 CT scans in my life now. From there, I'm not a tech at all. I just learned how to run the machinery and send off the images, and there would be a nurse there if they had to do like injections or anything. Like I wasn't doing anything medical. I was just running the machine essentially, but. I, got interested and I started like looking at the images. We would take the images and then we would send them to Belgium. There was a group of doctors in Belgium who would read the images and send back the report. And I got used to looking at them. So I would like look at the images and then try to determine like, what is this doctor going to say when the report comes back? And then I would see the report when it came back and be like, oh. So I started like like recognizing different things, and I could start seeing, okay, yeah, this is this, even before we go over. And two or three times, I looked at the images and I was like, okay, it seems that it's probably this. It's probably an ischemic stroke, and this is probably what it is. And then we would send it off, and the report came back later, and it was like something totally different. And then I like emailed the head doctor, and I was like, I'm not a doctor, but I'm really not sure about what this doctor said on this diagnosis. And then the head person like looked at it, and he's like, oh no, you're right. That person got it wrong. And
okay, Dr. House. That's crazy. So you went from the United States to going back to Africa to just working at this hospital for your in-laws. What brought you back to the United States and then into real estate?
So while I was over there, I got into Mr. Money Mustache and having this idea of being financially independent. So I started investing in real estate back in the States. So I was working over there, and then I partnered with my father, and we bought a quadplex. That was our first deal. And because I wanted to be financially independent, I had a 5-year goal to make at least $30,000 a year in passive income, and then I would be financially independent. Because even though we're a family of 4 at the time, we were living very frugally, and $30,000 is enough. I mean, it's still enough for me to go live in a third world country and live very comfortably, honestly. And in the States, you got lifestyle creep, and 30,000 doesn't go very far anymore in the States. Mm-hmm. But that was the goal. So we bought one quadplex, and we got up to 24 units. And then my father.
Well, real quick, Dave, before we go further, how did you fund these deals? How did you find them? How did you, let's just dig into a little bit of the beginning portion, because I'm sure you didn't come back from the Congo super rich neither.
No. So I went over to the Congo, and I had about like 15,000 in savings, and my dad, he had some more in savings. And that's when we're like, okay, we'll put our savings together and buy this quadplex. We put our down payment, get a quadplex for 125,000, and that'll be our first step. Then after that, like I said, I was following Mr. Money Mustache, so I was saving. I was earning 54,000 a year over there in the Congo, but I was saving. We determined that we were going to live off of 24,000. That was all we were going to live off of. So we saved the rest and just reinvested. And my dad also did the same essentially in his job. Like, okay, he would save a big portion of what was coming in, and we would reinvest. And that's basically how we did the first 24 units. Nothing fancy, just like good old fashioned, save your money, find a property, buy it, put your down payment down, 20%, 25% down payment, and buy it. That's what we did.
I wonder why that's not on the forefront of more websites. Good old fashioned 20% down. Like everyone's like, Felipe, how do you get into real estate? What's the secret? And I'm like, all right, give me $10,000, 5 minutes, and I'm going to give you everything. Are you ready? Good old fashioned, hard work, calloused hands, and 20% down. Go. Like that needs to be everywhere.
Because everyone wants to do it no money down, right? And I get it.
That sells. No money down. Yeah. That sounds sexy.
And the truth is, now I can do $5-10 million deals, no money down. And it sounds crazy, but I can. But I still don't recommend people start there. I recommend people get your financial house in order, learn how to save money, learn how not to spend your money, build it up, and then go buy a property with a down payment.
100%.
That's how I think people should start. Because if you don't get those fundamentals down, it doesn't matter if you get a property, no money down. If you don't know how to manage your money, you still won't have any money.
Exactly. So then for this property, for the first, either the first quadplex, the second quadplex, who managed that property for you?
My dad. He was working a full-time job, but he was in the area and he was managing it. Yeah.
Okay. And what were the numbers? You said you bought it for 125. Mm-hmm. What were the rents?
$450 a month for each unit. They're 1-bedroom units, so they were small. So that's what, I can't do math.
So $450 a month, that's like, it's 1,800.
Yeah. Right.
1,800 gross.
Yeah.
And okay, so you bought one. How long until you bought the second one?
The second one didn't come until almost a year later.
Okay. And you found them on the MLS? Yeah.
Sorry, Diego. I was going to say, David, I think this part is important because everyone likes hearing the stories of where like people hit the ground running and buy like 100 units their first year with no money down, and they burr all their money back out, and they're rich. But I like that you're telling the story of like, no, it was 20% down. We had to work hard, and our second unit didn't come for a whole nother year. That's really important, that patience, and that like you probably learned so many lessons in that first year that you probably still talk or still use today.
Yeah, exactly. And it's true. Like when people hear my story about my growth, okay, like, yeah, now I have like 170 units in 6.5 years. And it's like, oh, wow, that's crazy, right? And then commercial properties, like it's crazy. But yeah, the first year was just the basic slow, like take the step. And because that was my, then even that was my goal. It was just one property that first year. Like I had a 5-year goal. I was going to do it. And then I was like, okay, and got one property. And then as I did it, I realized it could go a lot quicker as I built my confidence, my experience, and my knowledge. It just kind of it snowballed on itself. But it does start just like that one property. Take your time, do it right. Um, yeah.
I like that. I like that a lot. So, okay, you got your first property. It worked out just fine. What lessons did you learn that first year that you would say are crucial that you still use today? Or what were some of your favorite moments in that first year?
So my dad was doing the management, so it was kind of, but we were communicating about it. But there was a couple of mistakes in that property that I remember and I still learn from. The first is I was running the numbers and I didn't include the city taxes. I only included the county taxes. So my tax bill was basically double what I thought it would be. And that's like $2,000. So right there, like it was like my tax was gonna be. So if you were only gonna get like $1,000 a month in profit, and then you find out, if you're only gonna get like $100 a month in profit, and then you find out you have an extra $2,000 tax bill, well, all your profit's gone and more. But fortunately, it was a good enough deal because I was trying to get a 20% cash on cash return. So it was good enough that even though I made that mistake, it didn't kill us. It didn't hurt us. We just got a little less profit than we thought, but it was still a good deal. And then we were able to raise rents, from 450 to 550 to 600. Now we're going to 650. So rents were able to be raised, but that was a big learning lesson of like, okay, I need to do my due diligence better. I need to look for city taxes. Like I'm not going to make that mistake again. I never have. But also it told me, okay, having this crazy high standard for some people of a 20% cash on cash return and I'm not going to invest for less protects me for when there is mistakes, when I didn't calculate something right.
That's important.
Yeah. And so you bought your second quadplex that second year. How did you get to the other two for the total of 24 doors?
Okay, so I got a quadplex, and the second property was actually a duplex. It was a duplex for 114,000, 3 bedrooms each side, and we got that property. I was basically spending time like researching at night over in the Congo. I would go online and research property, find it, email the realtor, or even call the realtor because I had a Google Voice number that showed up as a U.S. number, and say, "Hey, I'm interested in this property. My business partner will reach out to you." And so I would send my dad, "Hey, this is a good property. Go take a look at it." For the first duplex, we used a buyer's agent, and then for the next property after that, a quadplex, we used a buyer's agent again, but he messed up on that property. Essentially, he told us, oh, it was already under contract. So I directly reached out to the listing agent because it didn't show pending. And the listing agent's like, no, it's not under contract. And so I was like, okay, that's crazy. And then after closing, there was a small issue about like the seller's loan being paid off in time, and they wanted like $150 or something. It was something small, but I was like, okay, I think you should take care of this. This wasn't really our issue. It was something that didn't work out with the listing agent and the buyer's agent. Like, go ahead and take care of that. And the buyer's agent was like, no, I don't think I should take care of that. You guys just take care of it. So I was like, okay, took care of it, and I never used them again. And then I just started going straight to listing agents. And the listing agent from that quadplex, because we were in contact with her directly after that, she brought us 2 other duplexes. Then I found another duplex, went directly to the listing agent, bought that duplex, and that seller had 2 other duplexes right next to it. So we were able to get those off market. And then we got another off market deal for quadplex from another listing agent that I had, made a connection with, that I didn't buy something from originally, but then when something came up, he said, "How's this?" So really, pretty much all those 24 units, and this was over the span of, we got to 24 units in about 3.5 years. So it scaled up, after that first year and the second year, and then that third year really was when it really ramped up. But anyways, we got to 24 units. And then when we got to 24 units and I had reached essentially my cash flow number of 30,000 a year in passive income, and that was my 5-year goal, and I reached it in about 3 years. My father, he went to the doctor, and he wasn't feeling well, and they did an MRI, and they said, you've got a tumor on your liver. And I was like, oh man, no way. And I had just been to the States visiting him, and we had just gone back to Africa, and literally had just been a month. I had seen him, and then he wasn't feeling well, and then he went to the doctor, and I was back in the Congo. And he said, oh yeah, he told me he was the doctor, and okay, well, let me go get a second opinion. Go sees a second opinion. Yeah, oh yeah, you have this tumor on your liver. Yeah, you got about 6 months to live. And that really hit me. I was like, oh man, we got to figure something out. So I was calling, okay, can we do a liver transplant? And they're like, in the US, they don't really do live donor liver transplants, and you would probably be too long to be on the list before you get a donor liver, of someone who died. And besides, this tumor is too aggressive. It probably wouldn't work. And they didn't really want to do it. So I was researching other countries, okay, if we have to go to UK, India, wherever it is, trying to find a solution. And I was talking to my wife, and we're like, okay, we need to move back to the States. So we bought tickets, we had just been in the States, and we bought tickets for just a month later. Okay, so it's in a month, I'm wrapping up everything I'm doing in Congo. I'm moving back to the States to be with my dad. He's only got 6 months to live. And so he goes to another specialist in Vanderbilt, same thing. They say, oh yeah, no, there's nothing you can do. And so planning all these things, and I'm like, whatever, we just sell all the properties, take the money, let's, go to another country, get it fixed, try to figure something out. And so he finally goes to see another doctor in Atlanta at Emory. And that doctor was like, well, I don't really trust other people's MRIs machine. Let's do our own. I'm going to do another scan. So he did another MRI, and it turns out that his liver, you have 2 lobes in your liver, and one lobe of his liver had shriveled up so much, and the other lobe of the liver had grown over it, that the doctors had mistaken that shriveled up lobe of his liver to be a tumor.
Wow.
So yeah, he got misdiagnosed by 4 professional doctors, right? And
crap.
Yeah. Now he does have obviously a health condition that caused that to happen. And I said to my wife, let's move back to the States, and not right now, within a year time, because he does have this health condition, and I want him to be able to, we don't know when he may need a liver transplant, or when something might happen. So let's, so he can grow up with his grandkids. Her parents were enjoying their grandkids, and I was like, well, it's time for my parents to also enjoy their grandkids, and for me to be close to him, because we don't know how long he had. And really, we made that plan and said, okay, in a year, we're moving back to the States. And when I was decided to move back to the States, I said, either I go get a hospital administrator job anywhere in the country, because I probably won't find one in Chattanooga, or I just decide to do real estate full time. Then I can have flexibility. I can be with my dad. I can do this with him. And that's what I decided to do. You know what? When we move back to the States, go all in, real estate full time. And yeah. And I know some of you might not be religious, or maybe you are, but I think God really did have a plan for me when I was building these properties, and I didn't realize it at the time. I thought I was doing it for my own financial independence. but God knew that I needed to be there for my dad. And when I came back, you know, he had to have surgery and stuff like that. And I was able to be there for him and everything. And if it wasn't for the flexibility of real estate, I really don't know how I would have managed that.
I love this story because it's true that like one, yeah, God definitely has a plan for our lives. And, you know, a lot of the things that we go through, we think is for kind of in the moment. It's kind of interesting that you told that story about in the Congo, how like a lot of people live for like their right now, like they sell a diamond or whatever. And it's kind of like what you were doing. You were kind of looking for like, you know, okay, I'm going to get these properties. I want to reach financial independence, but like God had a different plan. It's like, no, we're actually going to build this because you're going to have to help take care of your dad, and you don't need to be in a 9-to-5 job that's going to take up all your time. You need to have this freedom. And it's interesting because if anyone's heard my story, it kind of goes the same way. Like I never like wanted to do real estate. My goal was something else. I wanted to be a cop. But I was always doing real estate in the background, and real estate allowed me the lifestyle that I have now with my family and my son. And I can help out a lot with my son because he really needs me with SPD and all that. But that's another story. What an interesting story that you have though, with that you were building this real estate, and now you have the freedom to have with your dad, and like you didn't even know that was going on in the background. So I think that's super interesting, super crucial. I do have a question though. At what point did you realize that you were financially independent and you didn't have to take the job? Like you didn't need the job to survive. You could rely on real estate.
Well, I mean, I was doing the numbers. So when I got the 24 units, I realized what the cash flow was, and I realized, okay, it would be 30,000 a year. And coming back to the States, I knew it was going to be a little bit tight, you know, a family of 4 moving back to the States into my house, because I had a house that I could move back into, but we had been renting it out. So that was other income that we had been, getting. But we're going to move back into our house just to be comfortable. Like the financial decision probably would have been to keep renting it out and go like live in something smaller, but just for like my family and to be comfortable, it's okay, we're going to move back into our house. So I knew I could do it just based off of my spreadsheet and my numbers. And, I'm always keeping track of that. But I knew it would be a sacrifice and kind of tight. And so I made that decision, but then another opportunity also presented itself where I became, and it's funny because I didn't really have any experience in it yet, but I became a property manager for 118 units. But it was for this mission organization, and it was on a it was completely flexible, and I could do it however I wanted, and I could just run it. I was just the boss of all the properties, right? So it was good because I could do it how I wanted it, but it wasn't like high paying or anything. I think when I started out, they were paying me like $20,000 a year because it was just kind of to help them out. But that helped me as well, because it was like, okay, I have this extra little bit of 20,000 coming in that helps, and it gave me experience to go from, okay, we have 24 units, but now I'm also managing like 120 units. So I got a lot of experience through that.
Yeah, because I bet that also gave you the opportunity to learn what systems you could implement for those units, but also later into your own portfolio.
That's right.
Yeah. And were all of those properties in the area?
Yeah, all in Chattanooga.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're the reason prices are going up in Chattanooga. Okay, David, I got you. You're on my radar now, bro. You're the reason I used to be able to buy a $120,000 duplex in Chattanooga. Now it's like $200K, or I ain't getting nothing.
That's right. I'll sell you mine for $220.
I don't want nothing from David. I know what you paid for it now.
Yeah, 74 is what I was paying, and now I'm selling them for $220. Oh man, it's crazy. Times are crazy.
That's goals right there. All right, so great story, man. Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing. I think a lot of the times people miss those stories on podcasts because people are so worried about the numbers and the deals and all that, and they don't realize that there's a passion behind why you do what you do, right? And personally, I feel that because I didn't grow up with money, and I didn't want to say we grew up poor or anything, because I don't want to diminish what my parents did for me, but like I never want to go back to how I started. So that's why I'm so hard. Like I think everyone has that, like that grind behind what we do, right? There's like this fuel that we have inside of us. So I appreciate you being vulnerable and telling us like, how you got to where you're at. And it sounds like that's some of the fuel that you use to continue to grow and scale. So kudos, congratulations. I think you're doing awesome. But how did you go from duplexes and multifamilies and these types of things to commercial? What was that flip of the coin?
So I first had like a transition moment where we were just using our own money and buying like one duplex, one quadplex, etc. Then there was one transition moment when I got an opportunity, and it's amazing how opportunity arises. You sometimes you think, oh, I'm just lucky or whatever, but you're just always there, just right, trying to get ready to accept that opportunity. And I called a listing agent again. Like, I don't know if you guys are catching on to this, but I'm basically telling you, you need to start going straight to listing agents if you're hearing my story. And I'm sorry, buyer's agents out there, but I mean, it just makes sense. And if you're a buyer's agent, go ahead and become a listing agent because that's where you want to be. So I called a listing agent about a single family home that my mother and father-in-law, we had moved back to the States. So my mother and father-in-law wanted a house in our neighborhood so that, when they retire, okay, if they move, they would also have a house near our house. And they were also going to rent it out. So I called about the single family and I'm talking about it. Hey, I want to buy this house. And I tell her I'm a real estate investor. I do multifamily investing. And she's like, oh, wow. She was just, a single family realtor, but she happened to have a package of 10 duplexes that she literally had no idea about. She didn't know, she couldn't tell you what a cash on cash return is, what a cap rate is, what an NOI is. Like, she could not tell you anything about investment properties at all.
I still can't either, David. I
can't. But she had these properties. And so she was like, would you be interested? And okay, it's like 10 duplexes for $1,050,000. And I was like, okay, how am I going to figure out how to get that done? Because I'm getting 10 duplexes. They're like 3-bedroom, 1 bath. Like, okay, this really makes sense. I can get rents up to like $15,000 a month. If I get it for $1 million, that's going to be a really good deal. And so how am I going to figure that out? And then I reached out to a family friend who had lent us money. We had done like a BRRRR. So she lent us money on a BRRRR. And so then I was like, hey, would you be interested in not just lending money, but actually being a partner in this deal? And so we brought her in and she got 35% stake for putting the most of the down payment down. And she got 35% stake. So that's when I switched, like, okay, I can go buy bigger multifamily deals.
How did you get the funding for it though?
I went to a bank.
Okay.
Yeah, I went to several banks. And that's another thing. Like, I went to several banks, talked to them. One bank was like, oh, no way, you're growing way too fast. Like, no way, we can't lend to you. And I was like, oh, no, take it to your committee. Okay, I'll take it to the committee. He never even took it to the committee. That's the one bank that I don't even do business with. I mean, other banks tell me no. I say, okay, and then I go around. But the way he treated me, I was like, no way. But so then I started, and I start telling my story. Like, I show what I've done, and then I show my story, and then I show, okay, this other partner's coming in with the money. And she is a really great partner in that she's willing to sign on the loan. A lot of people who are investors who don't, maybe they want to be passive or whatever, they don't want to sign on the loan. But she was like, oh yeah, no problem. She signed on the loan just like the rest of us. So the bank was okay with it. Like, okay, that makes sense. And so we got those 20 units, and that was like a big jump up. And from there, I started going for more like big multifamily packages and using either some of my money. I got a line of credit against some of my properties, and I got a 35 unit just using the line of credit as the down payment, and got a loan for the rest. And it's crazy because I thought that banks wouldn't want you to use a line of credit as your down payment. But for the commercial lenders, they're like, oh no, we don't care where their money came from for the down payment. I was like, okay, fine.
Say less.
So with that portfolio of the 10 duplexes, because this is an amazing story. So you were able to get this other investor to give you money for the down payment for 35% equity, did you put anything from your money, or did you just put in the like your experience, the know-how?
Mostly it was experience, know-how, management, but I think about $30,000 that we put in to help for closing costs and inspections and some repairs and stuff up front. So
Okay.
just to make it like, okay, it was like simple. You just pay this amount and anything other, and it ended up being about like $30,000. But primarily, it wasn't my money that I was putting in; it was my experience and my know-how. Know-how.
Awesome. That's awesome. And
But
yeah.
she was going to get a great return, even at 35% equity. You know, I mean, she still does. Like, you know, I'm sending her checks every month for like 1,500, and she's loving it.
My turn, David. What's up? Where we at? Go put my name on a check. No, dude, I think that's awesome, man. I need everyone to kind of rewind the last 5 minutes of that, because you know, it wasn't like you walked into a bank, got the loan, and then bought the property. You know, that's not how this goes. Like, you're gonna get a lot of no's before you get that yes. And that's important, because I think people sometimes look at real estate investors and like, oh, they can just walk into a bank, get a loan, and then walk out. Because that's what I thought when I first started. And then I got no, and I was like, wait, what do you mean no? This is a great deal. And it was, but the bank was like, no, like, that's just not what we're looking for right now. And obviously, you know, you got to be able to hit the right buttons at banks to get the loans. But it's like you say, you just go from one to the next. You just keep taking all these no's, and eventually you're going to start building relationships with the right banks, and then the deals are going to get easier and easier. I'm not saying they're going to get like simple. They're just going to get easier as you grow, because you're building relationships with those banks. You're building relationships with people who are bringing in the money. So I love that story, because I want people to know that this isn't just like, oh, I can walk into any bank and get a loan. But it's like, no, you have to build that rapport. You have to build who you are, and you have to prove to the banks that you are worth investing in, because at the end of the day, that's what it's doing. They're basically investing in you and the property, and they want to build that relationship. So that's really crucial.
That is so crucial. And just because you end up getting a yes from a bank doesn't mean it's always going to be a yes. I mean, I got told no just a couple months ago. They're like, no, we're not going to lend to you. And it's like, okay, that's fine. I'll go to the next bank where I'm building that relationship with another banker and see what they're going to do. And sure enough, they're like, oh yeah, we'd be happy to do it. So you're right. I still get the no's. Doesn't matter.
Absolutely. That doesn't stop. And as a real estate investor, as someone that's reached financial independence, I've learned to accept that it's nothing personal most of the time, but it is about continuing to look for those relationships to build. And it's important not to put all your eggs in one basket and focus on just one bank. Like, you need to have a backing of 4 to 6 banks, I would say. And I personally disperse my finances throughout these different banks so that they know that I trust them, they trust me, and we're able to do business together. So cash flow runs through this bank, or whatever the case may be, some savings over here. So don't just put all your eggs on one in one bank, like you said, because like, you might get a yes today on that one, but you know, maybe on the next deal they're going to say no. So you have to be actively building relationships with other banks. And this is where we say all the time, work on your business, not in your business. You should be working on getting relationships with banks so that when the opportunity comes, you have funding for that, that deal. Or like you said, working with the agents, building those relationships, right? Like, you shouldn't be out there fixing toilets. Like, hire that out, and you need to be like, where is the best use of your time?
That's right. And what people might not realize is banks have different things that they're looking for at different moments. And you can use banks based off of what they're looking for. Some banks are looking for deposits. Like, they say, we need more deposits in their bank. Some banks have plenty of deposits and they're looking to loan out money. So I try to put more deposits in the bank where they want deposits, and less in the bank where they're not really worried about the deposits. They're just looking to a good deal to loan out on. And then I go and leverage that. Okay, I tell that bank where I've put my deposits at, hey, I put my deposits here, now give me a line of credit. And they're like, oh, okay, sure. Do you have any more deposits? Yeah, but I'm going to need a bigger line of credit. Okay, here's a bigger line of credit. Okay. Oh, you want more deposits? You're going to have to give me a check cashing machine for free that I can just, scan my checks at home and not have to come into the branch. Can you do that? Yeah, sure. Okay. How much more deposits do you want? Like, those sorts of things. Like,
sounds like dating, David. It sounds like dating.
Give and take,
That's so funny. All right, David. So I honestly, this is going to be one of my, I'm going to listen to this podcast again and again because the story that you have is just phenomenal, man. I'm surprised that you don't have like 1 million followers on Instagram and like some flashy Ferrari or something. Like, I want you to be that guy so bad. Well, dude. Okay. So, let's jump to where you at now. This is the part of the podcast where you get to be selfish and tell us all the big numbers. What's your cash flow? What's your doors look like? Where are you at right now, dude?
All right. So I'm at 170 units plus 3 good sized commercial buildings for a total asset value of 26 million. And I'm focusing more on commercial now. I kind of have switched from multifamily because it's so hard to find a larger multifamily deal right now that makes sense. And so I've kind of made the transition to do more commercial. And in the commercial space, I am accepting investors. So people who are accredited investors who have at least, $1 million net worth and are willing to invest at least 100,000. I do 100,000 minimum on my investments because I still like it to be a relationship with my investors where it's smaller, there's a fewer of us, and we make decisions together and we can communicate to each other. And it's easier to do that when instead of like just having like 100 people who put 10,000 in, it's a lot easier with bigger size investors. So I'm doing that. And I started my own asset management company called Lubono Capital, Lubono. So lubonocapital.com. And I'm managing my commercial assets. And I've also got a contract to manage. They have quite a bit of money and I'm managing their assets as well. So that's kind of another side thing that I have gone on. And like you mentioned, I am on Instagram at DIY_landlord, where I try to instill some wisdom and show people what I'm doing at this time. And really, I've got my goal for this year and I'm going to complete it as far as I plan on buying a total of 20 million of real estate this year. And I'm going to do that. And then I have another program called Homeless to Homeowner, where I have one house now, but I'm planning on getting another 9 homes this year. I'm going to do that where I'm buying homes, fixing them up, and then renting them out to people who are previously homeless. On the Section 8 program, Section 8 will pay the rent, and they also enroll in this program where they learn to be financially competent. And then after they complete that program, they can then buy the house. It helps them become a homeowner. And then Section 8 will actually help pay for their mortgage instead of paying for their rent. So there's a huge, it's going to take a while. And right now I just have the one tenant in it. She just started and it's going good, but I want to build that up as well. So I got that homeless to homeowner program. So I'm doing all those things. And those are my goals for this year. And then after this year, I'm going to see where I go for the next year. Am I going to take some time off just to be more with family? Are we going to do some more traveling? Because we haven't been able to travel because of the pandemic. And also we've been adopting our 2 youngest children that we got out of the foster care system. So we've adopted one and we're in the process of adopting the next. So we haven't been able to really travel, which being third culture international people is kind of really difficult not to have been traveling for the last little bit. So next year we'll see where that goes as far as how much I do for real estate. But I see myself being more hands off and doing more bigger commercial deals because they're easier to manage and I'm able to get, larger properties, more assets at a decent price right now. Who knows where the market's going to go, right? But at this point, that's where it's looking.
I think as real estate investors, we're kind of like the old heads from up north that just chase the sun. We just chase the market. Like, what's the best deal? Where are the numbers working? We're chasing the money.
We're trying to, we try to be analytical and figure these things out. I said earlier, I'll sell for 220, but the reason I said that is I developed a formula and I realized if people are buying my duplex at 220, even with the rents have gone up some, I know they're settling for about a 6% cash on cash return. And in my mind, if you're settling below an 8% cash on cash return, that doesn't make sense. Because you just go put it in an index fund and get the same thing and not have any work or any headache.
Not have anything, yeah.
Right? So if people start settling for that, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right, but that's like a signal like, okay, maybe I should start selling those things and put it somewhere else where people aren't settling for such a low return, because at some point the market has to correct. Don't know when. With all this free money flowing around, it could be another 10 years. We don't know. At some point, I guarantee it, it's always happened, the market's going to correct. It's going to come back down. We just don't know when.
That's interesting. I've regretted every property I've ever sold, but right now I'm in this, is the big word conundrum? I don't know what the big word for it is. I'm trying to sound really cool right now. But like, I have a property that we only owe like 130 on, and it would easily sell for like 275. And I so badly want to sell it, but only because I want the money. But like, that's it. That's like the only reason. Just like, there's no other reason why I want to sell this property. And yeah, it's like you said, I really do believe we're at that top 80, 90% of the market. Like, we're up there. But then, and it's funny because, these checks just came out. So I'm like, man, I don't know. Maybe I am going to hold off maybe a couple of years. I don't know. I really don't. But
it's hard
to sell it, David.
Well, it depends. It always depends if you should sell or not.
Dude, I literally have the only reason I would sell it is for the money. Like, it cash flows great. The tenants are super simple. It doesn't cause me any trouble. It's just sitting there, paying off.
Right.
It's funny though, because I've also thought about just paying it off. I'm like, oh, I owe so little on it. Like, I could be cash flowing that whole thing. Like,
and just pay it off completely.
That whole thing.
I would say try to figure out some sort of signal, as far as like I did, in my market.
Dude, I want a Tesla. That's it. I'm selling it for a Tesla.
Well, yeah. If that will make you happy, go ahead and do it.
That's it. David, dude, I don't want to take up more of your time. Thank you so much for coming to talk to us here at Rat Race, being vulnerable and letting people kind of go a layer deeper into who you are. And showing that side of an investor, because everyone thinks that as a real estate investor, it's just roses for us, right? And that's just not true. We go through life just like everyone else. So any last words that you want to tell, wisdom words for our listeners, who want to get started in real estate and reach financial independence? Anything else that you want to let them know?
I mean, I would just like to always reiterate that, start getting your financial house in order. Just start there. And that's the first step. Then once you do that, if you're just determined and you're persistent, you're gonna get there. Like, it's just a fact. Like, if you set your goal, you write it down, and you take those steps, you will do it. So I know you can do it. And thank you guys for having me on this podcast. This was really fun. It was a lot more in depth, and I appreciated being able to tell that side of my story. We didn't spend just like an hour talking about real estate. So hopefully people who even aren't so into real estate can really enjoy this as well. So thank you.
For sure. Yeah, you have an amazing story, amazing human being, and giving back to the community is always amazing, right? It's like, sure, you can have your passive income streams, but at the end of the day is what can you give also to contribute to others? So Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Yeah, thanks a lot, David. All right, guys. So we're going to head up out of here. See you later, David. Thanks for coming on.
The Rat Race to 5 podcast, where we discuss money, mindset, real estate investing, and ways to achieve financial independence. Whether you are a rookie or a veteran needing new ideas for investing or creating side hustles, you're in the right place.